Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Scousers Premier League panel show. What are we at right now? Match week 28 is in the books. It's becoming the focus of the league is only going towards the middle now. It feels like the only race to watch ends up being like the Champions League race. Another week we get in where Liverpool actually gains even more on Arsenal on top of it. So this is bad evening. You should have fasted by now, so you should be like back to your regular levels. Yeah, we're kind of hurting as Liverpool fans from that PSG penalty shootout and stuff like that. But uh, I think it's in every fan base. I'm sure you guys know when the team loses. I mean, okay, let me ask you guys actually. Is
Oh
it
yeah,
like,
Timogen, I'm frequently on the end of getting eliminated from Champions League. I've really my heart is just breaking for you,
no,
Glenn. I'm,
no,
I'm sure
but
you're the
in terms
same
of
way.
fans, do you guys find your fans the same way? I mean, I feel like when we lose, the reason I ask is like I'm not trying to be a jackass, but we win more. Like the fans are a bit more spoiled, right? Like Sully was saying, the fans are a bit more spoiled, so they're a bit more used to like winning and stuff like that. So is it like, do you guys find your fan base almost like intolerable as well, like after a loss where they go overboard, or are Liverpool fans that are a bit more spoiled? Like the finger pointing starts, like suddenly you have to sell half the squad and fire everybody and stuff like that. Just people come out of the woodworks complaining about anything and everything. Is it just being spoiled, or is it just crazy meathead fans?
I think it really has to do with the expectations that are set up beforehand. For you guys, you were the favorite to win Champions League. For Newcastle, after that first Eddie Howe season, those losses were starting to hit hard. Those were the days where it was tough because expectations had all of a sudden gone from zero to now we're the big time. And in the ensuing seasons, I would say, I think expectations have been tempered. So not every loss is how out, we have to buy players. I think every loss for us, at least, is much more measured at this point. And it's like, trust the process. We're still doing way better than we were 10 years ago. So, no, I don't think, unless it's egregious, unless it's a game we should have won that we threw away, or a victory like we had over Forest, where Howe came out and said it feels like a loss. I think the manager and just the context of each loss dictates that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think, but even within the expectation, I mean, here's the thing, right? This is a team, and I know our expectations change on the fly. Like where, when the season began, nobody expected Liverpool to be where they are right now. And if you ask me at any given point, I'm always going to say Premier League, Champions League, FA Cup, League Cup is how I'm going to like probably, or League Cup, FA Cup are actually even to me. I know they're not back, in the UK, but to me personally, they're about the same. So like you, as you win now, you want to win more, and I understand that. But I mean, like Glenn, it feels like whenever we lose, the reaction is a lot more like so over the top, and it's so contradictory to what people were saying 2 weeks ago. This team was hot, right? We were like, after that Villa draw, like when we beat City, and then when we beat, like we were like, okay, they're rolling. This team is so good and stuff. And now because we lost, and honestly in penalties on top of it, and to a really really good PSG team, suddenly it's like everybody's tired, we should have had more, blah blah blah. Like it just, people lose it so easily, it feels like. Am I just getting old? What's going on here?
No, I think that makes sense. And obviously fans are fickle and fans are emotional as well. I think that's like the main thing. It's like the emotion and the hurt that you're seeing from Liverpool fans, right? I think most neutrals, I watched the first game, I watched extra time penalties today. And I think most fans would say that PSG over the 180 plus minutes probably were the better team. They certainly were. Should have been a couple of goals up back in Paris. And that was a great smash and grab. That was a game plan that was executed well. But, PSG dominated large spells of that. Again, I didn't see the opening 90 minutes today, but it sounded like it was pretty
In 90
even.
minutes, I would say Liverpool definitely was a lot better today. And, I especially the first 10 minutes, they missed like 2, 3 clear cut chances. And then the second half, hit the post and a lot of like goal line clearances and stuff like that. Liverpool did, but the overtime was back to PSG dominating.
That was the 30 minutes I saw, right? And you guys just ran out of steam. You looked really
Yes.
lucky, and it was PSG just pushing forward for most of it. And then penalties, it's a coin toss. It doesn't really matter, to be honest, because that doesn't reflect the performance beforehand. Yeah, it's probably just the hurt, right? It's interesting. I was thinking about this before we went on air. When you're riding super high, right, the same way you were probably like a month and a half ago, right, just before the FA Cup defeat, you're talking like quadruple. You're saying with a team in England, and you're saying with the best team in Europe on form. And by that metric, you expect to win the Premier League, maybe one domestic cup, and at least be in the semi-finals to final of the Champions League, right? That's the trajectory you're thinking for the season. Now, what we've seen, as it's unfolded is, crashed out of the FA Cup pretty embarrassingly, same way we did to the same team, and the reasons are clear, right? But some of the rhetoric to defend that is like, we're going to be tied for the Champions League. We're going to be tied for the Premier League. There's no jeopardy in the Premier League now because all the other teams are so poor. So I don't think it's surprising that a lot of that we're going to win the Premier League energy gets channeled into different competitions. Right? It's wrapped up. It's boring. You can't have. Obviously, you're going to be like it's incredible if you're a Liverpool fan, but there's no. It doesn't have that same level of tension if there's Arsenal 3 points behind you. It's just done and dusted. It's boring. It's boring for us.
People might even say, "Oh, in a way, this is good. We can focus on the Premier League now and stuff." If it was only a couple of points, right?
Exactly. And that's absent now. So what's happened is, I think, is that this kind of what would be the biggest culmination of this first slot season would be winning the Champions League in the final, right? Obviously you're going to win the Premier League. And as you said, that is going to be top of the list. And that's going to be this exceptional triumph. But just thinking about the fans' reaction, if you're saying, okay, it's overblown, they were saying the opposite thing 2 weeks ago. I think it's because things have changed, right? You've got the final coming up this week, which is big, but win or lose that final, your season's now over. And if you're still in the Champions League, it's not over, and you get to put all your energy into that. So I think you guys are just a victim of the other teams being so pathetic and weak and not offering a serious challenge to you guys. You've been way too good domestically. And it must hurt as a Liverpool fan to be this far ahead of Arsenal, City, everyone else. Not quite Newcastle, but you know what I mean. All of those teams. And then you don't get to do it on the biggest stage, semi-final, final. That's what's hurting. And that's when there's probably this kind of completely exaggerated inquisition. It's probably the pain of like, hey, we are the best team in England and we want to show it in Europe. And now you can't do that.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's a case of almost like peaking too early sometimes too, like gaining that form too early, where everybody's saying it. But it changes so fast, man. It just drives me nuts. Like this team is the best ever, and then they tie Everton, they tie Villa. They suck. They're tired. We should have gotten people. And then they beat City. They're like, they're the best. It just goes back and forth. It's just like, calm the hell down. Just step back and look at the big picture, or at least I can understand being disappointed. I just don't understand the over-the-top reaction to things. I mean, Shay, you guys are probably going to end up facing this team unless a catastrophe happens tomorrow, and they're an excellent side, really are. I mean, was the biggest difference is as they kept bringing subs, they were able to keep the same intensity and the same play, whereas we really dropped. The subs could not match the intensity of the game, and then it got worse and worse as we went into overtime. Do you get a similar thing with Villa now because money is spent? Has the expectation kind of changed a little bit more because of all these additions and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, I feel like there's always the people that just doom and gloom in every fan base. But I think we also have to realize we're definitely punching above our weight. So if anything happens, it happens. Will it be disappointing? Yes, because we've had an easier tie, so to say. We got lucky getting matched with Club Brugge, who's more on our level because we're similar style teams. We don't have the complete superstar blowing the money that City, United, PSG can spend. We have finally done it the last couple of years, but I keep seeing all these tweets of we're literally all wages and no money in, and PSR just keeps knocking on the door behind us. But like how you said, it's just I think also with the fans, they want to win stuff, and like how Glenn said, they see you doing really well in the domestic league, and then in Europe is where it truly all that matters in the most part. When it comes to this, of talking about the best team in the quote unquote world, is you have to compete in Europe. So when you lose that match, of course, people are going to be highly upset. But like I said, you went to OT, went to extra time. It wasn't like they just gave up in the match. They just got out beat by a team that had fresher legs, I would say, at this
I
point.
mean,
You know?
I mean, we lost some penalties at the end.
Yeah, you
of it.
lost one penalty, so it wasn't like you got blown out in the match and just like completely gave up. It's like, hey, you took them to the wire. They just they had it, and that when it comes out of penalties, it just comes to luck because at the end of the day, unless you're for certain you're going to win, you're going to win. But I mean, the only part I will say, the only one that deserved it was Carragher because he did talk all that crap in the pregame show, so I don't feel too bad for him. Jamie Carragher.
Oh, did he really? I tried to
He's
avoid
all he does.
post-match.
So like I can see why other fans, will pile on to y'all's misery. So that's probably why it gets a little frustrating too, because you go on to the Twitter page and you just see all the other fans just absolutely roasting everybody, but it happens.
A lot of the clubs that will really usually roast us for it, they're nowhere to be found. Listen,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just,
Arsenal fans are not going to come out. United fans, they're not going to. City doesn't even have fans, so really, who's going to come out and talk smack? I think honestly,
I mean, Newcastle had no trouble with PSG last time we were in the Champions League. So watch who you're saying is not going to talk the crap.
Yeah.
Put some respect on our name.
And honestly, I didn't even care as much for some reason. It sucked, but I wasn't as devastated as I normally would be. I got more upset in some of the fan reactions than I get upset at results sometimes, because you are not going to win every goddamn game. It's just not going to happen. Doesn't matter who you have, who you sign, who the manager is. You can get a team of managers if you want. It's just not going to happen. And that's why winning is fun if you started every game. And this was PSG. I can understand if we got knocked out by, I don't know, somebody who was going to be an underdog, like Club Brugge or something like that, right? Then you would be hey, we're a much better team. We should have. But it was PSG. There was no shame in it. I'm just aggravated by the fan base more than anything else, to be honest with you. But go ahead.
Timogen, one more thing just about PSG real quick and comparing them to Liverpool. Liverpool has had to have a grind of a season going through the Premier League. And I know PSG always sort of gets that bad rap that they're in Ligue 1 and it's a cakewalk for them. Watching this game today, this was a completely different PSG team. And I think the cakewalk actually was huge for them today, because you give all of those players easy games to gel rather than, just having Mbappe, Messi, Neymar. You're just throwing three guys at an entire team. This team looked complete. This looked like a team that had been playing together for a while. These were guys who, and again, Dembele is arguably their biggest superstar in quotes. And I would never consider Dembele a player you can build a team around. He could be your best player on a team, but he's part of the greater whole. And like you said, their substitutions were awesome. This PSG team is, I think, going to be a problem if they continue to do business with the business this way. I think this was a trap game for you guys. So I'm kind of with you. I wouldn't be too upset about losing.
I think the way they're designed compared to the PSG of the past, where they would spend a ton of money up top to guys who are just waiting for the ball to come to them to be involved. That's the thing. The guys coming off the bench are all 40, 50 million guys. So they took that money and they scattered it around. And the guys up top are working. They're pressing, they're working hard and stuff. It's a good team. It's a solid team. Yeah, Ryan says it was a rough game. Honestly, I thought the game was fine overall. The result was rough. I thought it was fine overall. But yeah, over the two games, if you're watching it as a neutral, especially after the first game, you're probably saying you probably deserved it. And it's gonna have either way. Like I say, the shit is going to happen. It just kills me when the fans just go
overboard.
That guy, doom and gloom guy Shay is talking about, that's fine. But then the bipolar ones are the ones that I can't deal with, where they're just way over the top one day, and then they're posting 85 memes and a bunch of banter stuff. And then 3 days later, they're selling everybody. 4 days later, back to the memes. Those are the guys that I just can't, as I say. Okay, we're the Premier League panel show, so let's get to some good news about Liverpool. Let's go back to the Premier League. This is where the shit looks good. Forest 1, City 0. I want to get back to this eventually, because we will talk about, I think, the top 5 battle and stuff like that, and who's going to end up where. So we will get back to this game. Liverpool 3, Southampton 1. That was one of those games where we were kind of looking ahead to Tuesday when we started. Kind of took it too easy, a really stupid error, get the goal conceded, everybody wakes up. apparently Slot really lays into them at halftime. We come out and go back to default settings, and Southampton is Southampton. Liverpool cruised to it, and that made it at that point 16 points. And that's all we needed, really. You needed a win out of that thing. The only downfall, probably, especially looking at today, is you couldn't take care of business in the first half, maybe, and be able to take a lot of people off and have them a bit more rested going into the PSG game. So that was probably the downfall of kind of trying to sleepwalk through the game, because this is the Premier League. You can't. Going back to what you're saying, Sully, PSG can sleepwalk in League One and probably just go through and like treat it like scrimmaging with the youth teams, if you will. Whereas you can't do that in the Premier League. You gotta kind of be on it. Crystal Palace 1, Ipswich 0. That kind of pretty much is settling it down on the bottom there, with Palace winning. And they're on a roll over there, by the way. They're kind of closing the gap in that middle there. And then Ipswich is with the Wolves. The gap grows. Brighton 2, Fulham 1. And let's get to this one. Brentford 0, Villa 1. Glenn, we've been talking about this freaking trend for like 2 months now, I think. It has gone upside down where Brentford can't. And this was a high-scoring game. Like, you would always take the over whenever Brentford plays. So what has changed that the goals are not coming now?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So we're the first team not to be unable to concede unable to keep a clean sheet at home in the top 4 leagues in England this year. So this season, every team in the top 4 leagues, League 2 up to Premier League, have kept a clean sheet at home, except us. So that's like one pointer as to where things are going wrong, right? If we keep a clean sheet against Shays Villa, that's 0-0. You get a point. It's a different narrative. We can't do that at the minute. We just looked a little passive. I just think we've looked a little passive at home for whatever reason. I also think teams are starting to work us out at home. I think you can kind of date this back to Spurs changing their setup, as I joked about on the show, like the first time and actually switched up his approach in a kind of clear, concrete way. It was literally at the G-Tech a couple of weeks ago. It worked dividends. And I think teams have realized that if they defend deep and try and soak up a lot of pressure and kind of invite us on, allow us to have the ball, they hit us on the break, that seems to be a pretty good way to go against us at the minute, right? So Villa did that pretty well. As I said, Spurs did that. Everton did that. And unfortunately, we've had a couple of games. I mean, so I was thinking, living abroad, I'm so jealous I haven't had a Brentford season ticket. This season, I haven't been at the G-Tech. No place I prefer to be in the world. That's still the case, but I will say, Villa at home lost 1-0. Everton at home 1-1. Spurs lost 2-0. The last exciting game at home, Liverpool lost 2-0, which was exciting. But the last result we got at home was a draw against Man City in January, if I'm reading this right. So all of these wins have been away. Palace, Leicester, West Ham, as you've been saying. So I think teams have worked out a strategy that is effective against us. It was all fun when it was free-flowing, free-scoring. You score 1 or 2, we'll score 3 or 4. And that was great against Ipswich or Leicester or whoever else, right? And it was still effective against Man City because they just weren't ready for us to come and attack them so much. But when these teams have come with a game plan, and there have been some tough teams, right? Teams who've got stuff to play for. Shea's playing for Europe. Everton, are just having this bounce with Moyes. Spurs and just playing for his job at that point when he comes to us. So, we've had a bunch of teams who maybe aren't the most glamorous top 4, but all have a dog in the fight against us, and they've just worked us out. And we've been passive. We haven't been fluid. We haven't really been able to play. Again, playing on the counter is something that suits us, hence us doing very well away from home. You can't really play that way at home at the G-Tech. Or maybe we should, But We've had a lot of possession. We've not done much with it. Teams have come with a plan. They've executed it well. Credit Shays Villa. It was one of those games, it was tricky. It's a disappointing goal to concede, literally on the counter. Watkins in acres of space. Collins doesn't go towards him because Aya, who's the right back, is halfway up the pitch. He isn't closed down. We know what Ollie Watkins can do. We've paid him to do it enough times, and a good finish and a good goal. Disappointing for Flecken with the deflection, but we didn't offer enough. Keane Lewis-Potter hit the post. We had a penalty shout that was, maybe 50-50, a foul on Sharda, maybe. I don't know. But it was one of those games where I can't argue with a 1-0 Villa win. We were just a bit flat. And at the end of the day, maybe they just had more to fight for. It's funny, we started that game, I think, one place below them, right? And immediately they win and jump up 2 or 3 spaces, and we kind of drop down 1. And I think for me, that kind of like encapsulates where we are this season. You know, we're 1 or 2 wins away from like 8th, but we're also 1 or 2 losses away from falling down to 12th, 13th. And we know we're on the beach, right? We know there's nothing to play for this season. We're not in any cups. We're not challenging or trying to stay up. And I think it's just been really hard for this group with a load of injuries, as always injuries, to really just get fired up and motivated. Not to say that we're not motivated, but, you know, we just haven't got that fight, because it's just, you know, our passivity on the field kind of reflects where we are. We're safe. We're good. It's not far off from saying roll on next season. Where we are in the table and where we can move, it's kind of like, okay, let's plan. Let's be planning for maybe top 8 next season. We're just kind of like in limbo, I think. And I think that's reflected in our performance.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that too, actually. That's kind of like an odd thing to be in, where, I mean, once again, it's going back to like a spoiled Liverpool fan thing, but, you know, like there's like nothing to play for a long time. Like, it's not even like, oh, the last 3 weeks kind of a deal. It's like we're talking like 10, 12 weeks of kind of like an environment, and that can affect the team. That's a good point, though. I mean, you're probably spot on. People figured it out, and they're kind of like protecting themselves against the counter that, you know, Brentford was like deadly on, and that's why every game, you know, they were a fun team to watch. It was always high scoring and stuff like that.
Yes.
But Shay, huge win for you guys, not only because of like the Champions League stuff and all that, but your guys' sore spot has always been the game before the game after the Champions League. So to get a tough away win in between is almost like a 6-pointer.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm glad to say they played us really well. I would say the first half, you know, we had the upper edge. We just couldn't finish. And then the second half, it was all Brentford and just typical Emery and Villa away from home counterattack. And like you said, it was just one magical moment, because after that, they absolutely dominated the entire second half. We did have the second VAR goal, which at this point is like the 3rd game in a row. I don't know how they're doing these lines, because truly, when you look at it, I think everybody was like, that's not offside. And they were just like, oh, well, his toenail. And I'm at the point now, I'm like, is it something offside, or you're zooming into the point that the pixels is what they're going off of offside? Like, we have to figure that out. But it was a very back and forth game. I will say, whatever Disasi was doing at Chelsea and how they didn't get him to play the same way he's been playing here is honestly mind-boggling, because he played a fantastic game, especially at right back. I was kind of worried, like when I saw the starting 11, which I knew they had in mind for this upcoming European game, because no Martinez on the bench, no Asensio. You know, you're playing Disasi as a right back when we have 2 healthy right backs, and then almost like a back 3. But he played out of his mind and kind of showed, like, you know, hey, this guy has a lot of potential. Chelsea may have found a gym, but they just, like you said, they buy a bunch of players. They kind of don't get settled in, and he's only been here for a month, but he looks like he's been there the whole time. I will say the most frustrating player, I mean, I don't know how Glenn takes on it, but Leon Bailey, my goodness. He went from being our player of the season last year to maybe one of the worst players I've ever seen, and that's kind of saying something. Like, and everybody's like, why are you so against? I'm like, I just don't understand how you regress that bad. I get, you know, you kind of a little bit of regression, but then we brought in 2 players, almost 3 players for competition, and he hasn't gotten any better. Yes, he did score in Europe, but
yeah,
I swear, like, you could almost guarantee, if there was a way to bet money, like do little parlays on what a player's going to do, I would take the over on Leon Bailey dribbling and running into a defender every single time, because that's all he did the entire first half. I was like, Sugar, that's all. Like, I was like, he should have been taken off 20 minutes into the match. I was like, please take him off. And then as soon as he gets off, like I told everybody, like, as soon as he got off, we scored the first goal, and, you know, the second goal came in. I was like, he's been off the pitch for 5 minutes, and look what happens. So, it's very frustrating. I'm sure he'll start again tomorrow, because he has played well in Europe, but it's just been a very frustrating player to watch. But overall,
yeah, he was something when he came, man. We were like, oh, that's the guy we should have gotten. You know, that was the conversation everybody was having. And it was a matter of people figuring him out. Just
a little bit of both. Like I said, he was really good last year. Like he contributed a lot, but this year he's got 1 goal throughout the entire, like, all the games he played, and that was literally last week. That was his first goal he scored all season, and it was in Europe. That's how bad it's been.
Wolves won, Everton won. I think both sides get what they want out of that thing. Wolves extend their lead a bit more. I think we'll look at the standings, but off the top of my head, I think they're like 6 points ahead of Ipswich now, which, is a lot when you look down in that part of the league because points don't come easy. Tottenham 2, Bournemouth 2. This was kind of like an exciting game. I don't know if you guys got to watch it, but this is like a vintage why teams like Bournemouth sometimes struggle to take the next step, because that was a game they were easily winning, and then they just like somehow found a way to give it away. Is it just, I don't know how many of you guys got to watch it, but is it just a matter of like they don't know how to turn it down? Like they were up 2-0. They could have lowered the gear and kind of control that game, and Spurs were not going to do anything. You can hit Spurs on the counter, but no, like when they countered, they were countering out of control, which kind of plays into Spurs' hands. Then they can attack and they have space because they want space and stuff like that. Because Bournemouth's an excellent team. I would probably want to take like 3-4 of their players to Liverpool, like Carcass, Emmanuel, and stuff like that. Is that just like the small team making that mentality to take the next step?
I think a two-goal lead is the hardest lead in sports, no matter what. Like it's cliche, but I part of me also thinks this team, Tottenham, is still fighting for Ange. Like they're not quitting on him, which is kind of hard to believe given how everything's gone this season. But no, I think this was just as much about Tottenham saying we're not going down without a fight as it is Bournemouth being like that small team that can't just make that next jump. I think especially in the end there, Tottenham kind of okey-doked them and capitalized.
Yeah, I agree. I did watch it. I watched the first, like, whatever it was, 65, 70 minutes. I was just leaving the house as Spurs got their first goal back. And it was a strange goal, wasn't it? A cross or a shot or whatever. Yeah. And it's those kind of goals that go against you that you just, it's just really unfortunate, right? Because that happens, this kind of freak goal. And then Kepa rushes out and gives away a really needless penalty. Yeah. What is it with these, like, Chelsea have made it a real habit of expensively accumulating these extremely erratic goalkeepers because, like, it's funny. You want to give goalkeepers, another chance, of course, as you should, and like give them patience. But you get these players like Kepa, for example, obviously like Sanchez, who was awful at Brighton. He's awful at Chelsea. He's finally been dropped, right? And these keepers, like, do just make continued mistakes. The Ipswich keeper was abysmal until they switched him out. They took way too long to bring in Palmer, I think it is, in goal there. My friend who's an Ipswich fan is like convinced if they'd switched it out quicker, that would have saved them a couple of points. And yeah, I think for me, and compare that to Alisson as an extreme on the other end in Paris, obviously, I think it really just demonstrates like the importance of having a really good, consistent keeper. Think about Spurs, right? Vicario's come back. He was a huge miss for them. Like their backups were awful, absolutely awful. I know they didn't spend much money, and I know they weren't meant to be first choice, but they were a genuinely poor goalkeeper for the Premier League. So anyway, so I think it's just like, things like that, individual errors, freak goals. I think that those can go against you. I am really surprised when it was 2-0, I was just about to leave. I thought it was going to be 3-0 Bournemouth, end of the game, right? I was really, really surprised. I think that's a really good point about Spurs still having some fight left, because the mood around the stadium was obviously really pissed off by that point. Another poor result, it's heading, another on top of a really bad, disappointing season. So I think you're right that there's still some motivating drive. And, just like Brentford in previous seasons and this season, like the injuries are a pretty convincing reason for why they've struggled. It isn't the be-all, end-all. I think he's still been way too dogmatic, and I think he's really hurt himself, as has Amorim at United. They have not helped themselves, and I don't understand that. But nonetheless, clearly he's doing something. He's instilling some kind of belief in the players to, yes, if there's a weak team mentality-wise there, you go 2-0 down, that's it. Yeah. Even with the freak goals, to equalize, draw 2-2 against a really good Bournemouth team, you're spot on. Ivan Nilsson's back for them. He's a great forward. Cliver is a baller this season. They've got stacks of players who are just awesome. Kirkes, how about that cross?
Yeah.
Cross of the season.
I would love to make them the new Southampton of Liverpool and just go like raid.
Raid them. They're a team that's there. Brentford did that to Dagenham and Redbridge when we got promoted from League Two, which isn't quite the same glamour. The three players we stole from them. But yeah, Kirkes, was just awesome. And that cross was
Yeah.
You could see him doing it, right? You could see him put his head up, run down the wing, and all of us watching were like, just cross it and hope. But like the way he did it so accurately for it to have the dip, oh man, that's just like world class.
Yeah.
So for them to score those kind of goals, that shows me that Bournemouth are the real deal this season, and I want to see them go as high as they can. But you're right. There's a ceiling to what they're going to do if they give away these leads, right? There was a huge 3 points on the table for them against a really
It
out
was
of form Spurs.
huge, like for the top 5. I think, like I said this about Fulham before too, when like Alex is on. It just feels like sometimes a little bit too naive, where when things are going well, almost like they get ahead of themselves, as opposed to just being like, okay, we got this game, just control it, finish it up. Closing games is a skill, but you got to win lots consistently, I think, to be able to get there. And it feels like a team that we're like, holy shit, we're up 2. Kind of a mode, as opposed to, you know, like being used to it kind of a deal. But speaking of somebody who's on and off, but I mean, somehow they're still rolling around. I guess we'll get to the top 5 race and we'll see what it says about them. But Chelsea 1, Leicester City 0, United 1, Arsenal 1. We did a live watch along for this one. God damn, that was a boring first half. I think we talked about anything but soccer during the watch along because it was horrific. And then the wall, the free kick, United get a goal. You kind of knew they were going to give that up, even though United has a lot of chances in the second half. I keep coming back to this Arsenal thing, and I'm the last guy to defend Lego Head, but I thought they were just like, they were trying to put words in his mouth in the post-match interviews, which I was even annoyed. So he was obviously annoyed. But Shay, what do you make of Arsenal? I know a lot of talk goes to this. They didn't sign a striker and stuff like that. But the biggest thing to me in that game, and we said it during the watch along with Mecca, is the way like Rice and 3-4 of them celebrated the goal when they tied the game. I'm like, it's like people, there's that cartoon strip, like people unclear of the concept. Like, dude, like you gotta win. And I think that just alone, forget the striker and everything, says a lot about the mentality overall.
It is, and I think that's why, going back to just, you know, fan bases and just mentality of like almost the players. We were watching that match, or I was on the phone with my friend talking about that, and we saw the goal. Like, it was a great goal. I'll give Declan Rice that. But the way he celebrated, act like he scored the winner, I was like, dude, there's still 25 minutes left of this match to play. You haven't won anything. And if anything, you're struggling against one of the worst teams in the league right now, who have been abysmal. And you guys want to say you're title chasers, but you can't do the one job you're supposed to do. And it's just the way he acted. And I was just like, there's something about like when players go to Arsenal, they just turn into assholes, to be honest with you. I was like, he wasn't like that at West Ham. I was like, that's the last time he won something was at West Ham. And then he comes to Arsenal and he acts like, you know, he's the best player.
Declan Rice has always been an asshole since he turned back on the boys in
the way he
green.
acted,
Yeah, ask anybody Irish, check Declan Rice.
Yeah.
They got.
You scored a good goal, cool, but you got a point against Manchester United. And you're supposed to be title, you know, like racing for the title over here. Like, this is what happens. I just think that's what people are getting fatigued with, is the fact that they act like that and they don't ever show anything for it. Now, I didn't see what the after match commentary was. I don't know what they said to Arteta, but I can see him getting frustrated with them just asking some things. And I'm sure he's probably, you know, a little with the players too. Like, hey, don't be such pricks all the time. It's like, look, man, like we already have this negativity around us. People know, people see. You know, be humble. I hate to say it. Like, there's other teams that have done really well. You got to be a little bit humble. You're not, you know, Real Madrid out here winning 10 Champions Leagues where they can talk all the crap they want to talk about. Like, that's a club that has earned that. I would say Liverpool can do that right now because they've been able to dominate. City had every right to do it. This is the worst year we've seen of them, but City has every right to be quote unquote arrogant like that. And they really weren't. Like, I'll give that to Man City. Like, Pep really didn't say much. We just know he's whatever, but the players never went out there and like, oh, scored a goal, acted like Declan did to tie a match. They knew better. So I think it's coming down to they know that they've lost the plot, so now they're trying to do anything they can at this point.
They were asking, because I guess, you know, Declan Rice, how like the wall was set. Honestly, during the watch along, I didn't notice that it was further back than it was. It was like 11.2 and stuff like that. And I guess Declan said something. So they tried to, because, you know, he complained about the ball in the Caribou Cup, and we, you know, made fun of him and stuff. So they were trying to get him, literally trying to get him to say something about that wall. He asked the same question twice. And when Arteta did not bite, Now, like the interviewer got like pissed off, so now he's like, "Well, how about the title race, asshole?" And then just like, I mean, come on, like just like, but I mean, there is something to be said about that. I mean, Sully, I don't know, like maybe like you guys are more of a neutral, but I don't know what it is. I can't stand Lego Head, first of all, and I think the team over time takes the personality of their manager, and suddenly they have become a team of like jackasses. Like Havertz is over there. Whiny face Jesus, he brought him over from like City and stuff like that. I mean Rice, I don't care as much about, but then. And on top of all that, they're very unlikable, that's for sure. Apart from Saka, I really like that kid. I think he's like, But on top of that, there's like a uncalled for cockiness about them. And they go, because of that, they go really high. It's like when they beat City, they acted like they won the title and stuff like that. Does that come from the manager? Is that the mentality? What is that?
And I hate saying this because I as a neutral, I liked watching Arsenal for a long time. They didn't have necessarily like they were I grew up. I was young when the Untouchables were a thing. Like that was one of my first introductions to soccer. Those great old maroon with the O2 jerseys. I've got very fond memories of this time. And like you said, look, kind of slowly but surely, they've become sneaky assholes. Like, and the problem is they're not in your face about it, particularly with Newcastle. I mean, Newcastle hated Kai Havertz when he was at Chelsea. When he came to Arsenal, it was like, we're doubling down on this now. They are an unlikable team. They remind me, speaking of comics, but like that meme where it's the guy in third place like slamming the champagne. That's what it reminds me of. It's like, you guys haven't won shit. Like, how does it feel to come in second? The great philosopher Ricky Bobby said, if you're not first, you're last. And what do you have to show for all of this, Arsenal? What do you have to show for this renaissance? You're acting like a team that should be in 6th to 10th place, like you were for that many years. And you want to talk about a toxic fan base. Good Lord. Like, our soccer after an Arsenal loss is just good. It's like a minefield. It's terrible. And it is a bummer because I love the way they play. I think they're a historic club that I can get behind because they don't often throw just like these bags of cash. It's kind of like PSG this year. Everybody was always sort of in that 20 to 50 million pound range. No real superstar again. But yeah, they are just so unpleasant. They're becoming almost like the new Man U. Like they think they are hot shit, and get them off my TV. I'm done with them.
I'll say it's only too, like kind of like how they said fan base. Like, I mean, obviously we have Arteta, but the way they treated him and they still talk crap about Arteta and Andy Martinez, I was like, look, you didn't give them the opportunities. We have, and we have thrived with them, and they literally that's all they talk about. Like every time the match comes up, it's just like, oh, we can't wait till we beat Emery, and we can't wait till we beat Emu, and then we literally beat them, and then they literally just start crying and just trolling. And it's not even good trolling. Like it's just rage bait. I was like, they can't even have a civil conversation about it.
Well,
you guys kicked him off the team. Like, he literally got you to second place or whatever. Yes, he didn't do well in Europe that 1 year, but he was taking over the team after Arsene has been there for years. Like, they didn't give him any time. And they're like, oh, well, he's this. Then here comes, Arteta, and they give him the time of the day. And I was like, what has he done truly any different? Nothing. He hasn't won shit. He won I think, Community Shield and an FA Cup. That's it. But he hasn't won anything else.
2 Community Shields, I'll have you know.
2 Community Shields. Oh, yeah. Preseason tournament. Oh, man.
They almost remind me in a way of Bears fans, and which I am one of. Like,
I'm sorry.
We're still shooting our guns off about 1985. Like, Arsenal's acting like 2001 was last season. Like, you can't live in the past. You can't live off nostalgia. You have absolutely no reason to think you are the status that you are. Excellent, second place. Whoop. Like, who cares? You haven't won anything. get off your high horse.
And that's the weird thing, Glenn. Normally, the teams that are winning a lot, you kind of develop a hatred towards because you're sick of them winning, like the Chiefs or something. You know what I mean? Like everybody roots like it because you're sick of them winning, so you start rooting against them. So some of the hatred comes from that. So you can tell Arsenal is just nothing but jackasses because people still hate him even though they have not actually won anything. So the hatred is definitely not coming from watching them win stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, wishing our Arsenal fan Alan the best with an injury.
Oh yes,
This probably won't be helping. This probably won't be helping his pain. He's like covering his ears as well. They're in pain as well. I think it's easy to forget that Arsenal won the Community Shield in 2023, and that was a huge moment for the club. And they seem to treat it like it was the quadruple. So let's give them some credit there because that was their cup final. And I think credit where it's due. Arteta's transformed them into real winners, and that's all I've got to add.
I like Glenn being nice about it. That's fine.
Oh man, yeah. I think that's why Alan has that.
Waiting for
Alan
all
might have broken his foot on
Bring
purpose.
it on. Surgery goes well, buddy.
I think that's like an injury. He made it happen. that's probably less painful than listening to this. But West Ham 0, Newcastle 1, which does bring us. I do want to bring this because then I think we can kind of like combine the discussion at the same time. Where is this team now? Obviously, we're going to be playing this weekend coming up. And you guys are going to be playing a tired-ass team, and I think Trent is definitely out. Hopefully, Konate is not out. But let me put up the standings over there. That was a weird win because really it didn't look like it for the most part. But what do you make of that with the injuries and what's happening? Is the team going to make top 5?
Yeah, I said it the last time I was on. If we make top 5, that's gravy. Like I'm being serious in this. All of my energy is being put toward Saturday right now. All of my energy, like that. You want to see a fan base get toxic. I'm going to be a one-man fan base that is going to be very unhappy if the result does not go my way on Saturday. But top 5 would be awesome, but I still think there is a gap. Even though City lost to Forest this weekend, I still think there is a gap between us and those top 5 teams. I mean, obviously Liverpool is far and away the best, but just on paper, Arsenal, City, Forest, and kind of Chelsea, I think they have better teams on paper than us. Our left side is just decimated. Not going to have Anthony Gordon. For the cup final and one more game into next week. Just announced today, Lewis Hall done for the season. He has to have foot surgery. And he looked incredible in that Forest game. He looked amazing.
I'll tell you what, Livramento on the left looked like me playing on the left, and I only use my left foot to like walk on.
And we signed him to be like the ambidextrous Swiss Army knife defender, and it's not going that way. He's
not comfortable. Like you can tell, like the motion calls for him to whip it in with the left, and he's like, nope, not happening.
And we can't move Burn back to the left because both Barnes and Gordon have so much speed that leaves such an opening on that left side when Burn can't get up the field. So we're having to leave Burn in the center because now Botman is going to miss at least 8 weeks, it looks like. So we're not going to have him for the cup final. So what was our strength, that left side, is now a glaring weakness. And so it's going to be very interesting to see what we can do from there. I thought Harvey Barnes had a great game yesterday. I mean, he set Bruno up perfectly for that goal. But yeah, I think if we hold 6th, I'd be very, very happy with this season.
Really?
I would. We're gonna spend a lot of money this summer. We haven't brought anybody in really in the last 3 transfer windows. We got money to spend this summer. We're gonna get a new training facility this summer as well. I think next fall is when the campaign really starts to get ourselves to be a European team. Because the one time when we made it under Howe's first season, it was kind of like, oh my God, we are in Europe right now. Like,
Yeah.
how did we get to the mainland? Like, it was just not expected. We didn't have the bodies for it. And I think now that we've had a consecutive run of top 10 finishes, now I think is the time to strike while the iron's hot. We got
Will
Isak.
Isak be there to see these days?
What'd you say?
Will Isak be there to see these
I think so.
glory days?
I really think so. I
Okay.
think they get him wrapped up with a new contract before the summer starts. I think we're gonna pay through the nose for him. I was listening to another soccer podcast talking about all of the Saudi ownership groups seem like they have kind of pivoted and are now focusing more on spending in the Saudi league rather than dropping tons of cash at these other teams owned by the PIF in Saudi Arabia. So I think we will have him in just the sense of keeping Newcastle profitable. I think we will maintain with him.
Okay, let's get to Glenn. I guess we'll start with you. This is why, by the way. Let me scroll down a little bit more, but that shit looks good, doesn't it? Doesn't that top look great? Okay, let's scroll down.
Sorry, you're breaking up. My internet's getting fuzzy.
Yeah, let me scroll back up. I don't need to talk. You just have to look at the screen and look at the top over there. Okay, let me scroll down to the other peasants. Here, Glenn, looking at this, I mean, that's why this game was, I thought, a huge disappointment for Bournemouth, because they would have been at 46. And I think they were talking during the broadcast that, 8 of their last games are the bottom half of the league and stuff like that. And obviously they're a good team. This is going to be a fun race. And it's really the only race I think we have left. Who makes the top 5?
Oh. Yeah, it's a really good question, isn't it? It's so hard to say because it is just so tight, right? And one result changes everything.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a shame for the league that the only thing we have to kind of cling on to is who's going to make Europe. I'm glad it's tight and exciting. But as we said last week or the week before, you look at the championship table, and I mean, there's 3 teams gunning for the top 2. The playoffs go down to like 10th, 11th. Like, that is so much more gripping as a neutral or as a fan than this. But regardless, it's tough, isn't it? I was interested that Sully's, said you're happy with 6th just because like one win could take you up to 4th. But
Yeah.
I do appreciate you got your mind on the cup final. I do appreciate you being a bit more like kind of circumspect in that sense, like, being a little realistic with where the squad's at. And yeah, talk about Anthony Gordon getting himself, it's great you guys got the win this weekend, but like, talk about shooting yourself in the foot. I mean, so frustrating.
And Glenn, back to your point about, crazy Chelsea keepers, do they want to sign Nick Pope with all of these headers he's taking? It's like, buddy, that's why you missed the last cup. Like, what the hell are you doing? Yeah, sorry.
No, it's so true. Liverpool, Arsenal, it gets really interesting after the top 2. I'm just saying Arsenal have a 4-point gap to second, so they'll be fine for obviously top 4. It really does open up, doesn't it? Isn't it interesting that, Forest are a couple of points ahead in 3rd? I am stunned that they've maintained this, but they're there, completely due with credit. They're due there because they've played really well. And once again, against Man City, they showed that they can still do it when they need to. And yeah, we've talked about their squad. It's not like a kind of rags to riches romance story. They spent a load of money. They bit the bullet on that. But it looks like a lot of that money this time around was spent well. We talked about that before, Shay, didn't we? That first round of buying was a disaster. Second round, talk about players that Chelsea have let go. I mean, Hudson-Odoi, they got him for just a couple of million, and he is a baller. Look at Elanga. It's like rehab, as like we said before, for these like Premier League cast-offs. It's amazing. And Chris Wood is like one of the strikers of the division right now. It's insane. I'd love them to be there. I mean, is it boring just to say keep it as it is? Some combination of Forest, Chelsea, City for the rest.
I was looking at that too, like, because I think that's where I'm leaning towards, without looking at the schedule and who they have to play and stuff like that. But you have so many teams. That's why I think it's so interesting in a way. And I wonder, like, if like Alex and them are looking and saying it's only 5 points because, like Bournemouth is right there, Villa has strengthened, and I mean the Champions League. If it wasn't for the Champions League, I would put Villa in there.
I agree.
that kind of has like a negative effect on him. But I mean, Newcastle, if it wasn't for the injuries, I think I would put him there. But Sully, let's say whichever way the weekend goes, like if they win, would that be a positive impact for the rest of the season, or they'll be like job done? And if they lose, would it be like, well, we got to hustle now and get to Europe at least?
I think if we win, it is job done. I really do. And this goes back to like we are a cup team, and especially in a town like Newcastle where a trophy in general is so important. I think if we win on Sunday and then just sort of like, I don't think it matters what happens the rest of the season. If we win Sunday, we've got a damn trophy. Like that is more than we've had in the last 60 years. So yeah, I could see winning being an overall detriment. Either that or Eddie Howe and Jason Tyndall let it kind of free flow, and the guys are sort of like, hey, we just won the trophy. Let's play free. Let's play open. Like the monkey's off our back right now. So I think it could go a lot of directions, and I think and the Anthony Gordon thing, that was the only real moment of petulance we've seen too much this season out of Newcastle. And the last few years we've been Voldemort. We've been all about the dark arts, and so I think that has also been a positive change for the club. I think I'm leaning like 50% we're going to play free flowing, 25 jobs done, we quit, 25 we push for Europe.
By the way, I have a new theory about Eddie Howe and how like Jason is always like in his pocket. I think he's afraid to be on the sideline by himself, because this time when I saw him, I thought they showed like literally they showed the assistant and he was somewhere else. But then Eddie Howe was next to the fourth referee, and I'm like, oh, okay, he has somebody next to him. He just gets scared, I think, when he's by himself on the sideline. I don't know what.
He's a nice guy. He's sensitive. Like he just wants to be by somebody. What's a friend? Come on.
Okay, well, your turn now, Shay. Who's making this top five?
Let's see. It's a tough one, The top five. The City may pull it out. I know they've struggled, but how Sully just said, if they don't win the cup, then they push for that 5th European place. But I should have a question. If you win the EFL Cup, do you get a European spot, or is it only for FA Cup?
It's only FA.
Okay. Cup, yeah.
So then you would still want to try to make that push. For us, I mean, we're still in the FA Cup and Champions League, so it's almost like, do we go all in for those two? Because if you win one or the other, you're still back in Europe. Obviously, we're not going to win the Champions League, but to make it to the next round would be huge. But if we could somehow get to the final of the FA Cup, we have a pretty solid chance of winning that. So we could almost, Emery will take a little bit of a break in the league per se, of not pushing too hard and just trying to get results and not going all out, because you also have to minimize our injuries too. Like, we're still dealing with that. I mean, I could see Bournemouth, like how we said earlier, they can just close out the games. They could potentially do it. Like I said, if they would have won that match
and
today,
everybody's really non-committal over here, I noticed.
So, do what?
Everybody's very non-committal over here.
Yeah, well, because like
the entire top
how Glenn said earlier, literally one match could change everything. It's honestly really hard, because obviously I want Villa to do it, but if we would have lost literally Saturday, we would have been out of it completely, because it would have just taken us out of that. But we won, and we're still there, grabbing for the straws. And honestly, same with how Glenn said, like, I know they haven't been too hot lately, but it takes one run and then they're right back in it too. So like, City's got probably the easiest chance of not easiest, but like, it's theirs to lose. So that was probably something on their mind. Pest would be like, look, guys, we can't not qualify for Europe. Like, that would be completely detrimental to them. And I think Chelsea's probably not going to blow it. And then, like I said, Forest, they probably have it in their sides that they're not going to lose many matches, that they're not going to, they shouldn't lose. I'm going to say, I don't know. They're going to do it. I'm just going to go with my team. We're going to do it. We'll somehow make it. I doubt it, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think Forest stays up there. That was like I didn't realize actually City and Forest were that close there. I guess like Forest dropping off a lot of points recently kind of brought them down. But so that makes that win they got this weekend even bigger. But I think Forest stays there. I mean, if you listen to Arsenal fan TV, they're worried about staying at top 5, but they will stay up there.
Yeah, Arsenal. I'm sure they're not going to go down.
Honestly, it would be funny if Forest jumped Arsenal and then
Yeah,
that meme came to fruition. That would be like that the third place champagne. That would be perfect.
I can see that because that's only 4 points. I just don't see them dropping all the way. But City will get enough points to stay up there. It's a matter of like, will Chelsea stay consistent? You see them struggling against Leicester, and it just like kind of like boggles the mind. But let's get to this. We are very non-committal on this top 5 is how I'm taking this and moving on. But we cannot afford to do that in this next segment over here because we are Tonali's picks, and if we're gonna make monies, we have to commit to a bet one way or the other over here. So let's look at the games coming up this weekend. Sully, let's start with you. Where is you can fit him in one screen over here. Because I guess, because us and Newcastle and stuff. So 8 games to pick from. What do we have?
I'm going to take Everton over West Ham. I think Everton, I could see that being 1-0 Everton. That's where I'm going to put it. I think West Ham is still frustrated by a loss to Newcastle. They didn't look like they were pressing particularly hard. I think Everton keeps up a good run of form.
That's not bad, actually. At this stage, I don't even know that's an upset, but that's a good bet.
Technically, Everton are above West Ham in the table. I don't know if it counts.
You've been shunned.
Hey, I'll take it back. I'm gonna go Brighton, Man City then. I'll take that one.
Damn, so he's going with that. Brighton beating.
Yeah, there
City.
we go. Z. I'm gonna say 1-0 Brighton over City. I like my scoreline.
Okay, Glenn, what do you have?
Let's see. Yeah, I agree with your reasoning. I wasn't trying to dismiss that. I was thinking before you said it. I was like, haven't Everton gone above West Ham in the table recently? They're on the same points. I would have gone. I liked your reasoning for both because I would have gone for Brighton and Man City as well. Someone put in the chat earlier. We put it up right how good a run of form Brighton are in, and they're kind of going under the radar. They're the definition of a team that's going under the radar. And we've said before, at the start of the season, a couple of weeks in, we're like, you could tell me Brighton were 6th or 15th this season, and I would believe you. I just cannot work them out. They must be so inconsistent. But they have so many quality players, and they got Welbeck back, and he has been completely revived. He's been like a phoenix for them. I like the Brighton pick a lot. That would be one to put some money on potentially if people did that. I don't. I like United at Leicester as well to lose. I think.
Oh, that was a curveball.
It's also a tricky one, isn't it? You could call me out on that, but I think
it's pretty sad. I had to think of who's above who.
Yeah, same. That would have been funny if I picked that one as well. I'm like Fulham to beat Spurs. They can do it. Yeah, United are so inconsistent, and you could tell me they'd win 3-0. They just can't score goals. And what I love this week is you got Ratcliffe in the media yesterday, whenever it was yesterday, saying how much he hates his own players, calling them out by name. I mean, imagine that for your morale. If you're Højlund running around up front, or you're a Nana, you're trying to deal with a corner, and this interview is echoing in your head, saying how much he despises you.
Overpaid.
I mean, useless, overpaid. I mean, and even the people even the loanies, they're still on the pay. That's the whole point, I guess. But they're still your players. He's calling out players who are still. Sancho was in front of for. Yeah, Leicester. It would be funny, wouldn't it? After Van Nistelrooy got this job because of his United results, he's done a pretty abysmal job with a pretty weak squad. But it'd be quite nice if he could maybe turn it around, overtake Ipswich, get within potentially 3 points of Wolves by beating United. That would be a way for Leicester to kickstart their season and to bring them back into this kind of conversation. So I would think about maybe stick a double on Brighton and Leicester, because I think you get pretty good odds for that.
Look at that. We're like doing parlays and stuff. Man.
Little parlay.
Hey, what do you got?
I was gonna
Making a
go.
3 game.
I was gonna go Brighton City just because that would be just the toss up in it. But I like the one how Paul just said. Chelsea pulling off the upset, to just really crushing Arsenal's hopes, and then we can post the meme that Sully was talking about, just for everybody to see. Just have them popping off in third place, potentially fourth place, because then Chelsea goes on a run, and then Arsenal definitely falls out. That would just be the icing on the cake.
And maybe the Arsenal Fan TV thing will come true. Man, you guys took all the good stuff. Yeah, I'm kind of lost on this one, but I think Leicester City is, I think, a solid one. That's a solid bet. I would do that by itself. But Chelsea getting something out of that game is a possibility. Just to make it funsies, as the kids say. I'm going to go with Southampton getting something out of Wolves.
Ooh.
Oh,
Hey, if you're going to open this academy, we need some big odds. Potentially. We need some big odds and big bets, people. So I'll go with Southampton getting something out of that game against Wolves. Maybe Wolves are a bit more comfortable now that they see a 6-point lead and stuff like that. Probably won't happen, but that's why we gamble and we're addicted to it. But we'll be back next week. Thanks a lot, gentlemen. I was going to bring up the whole United thing, but we pounded on them so much last week. I figured we'll give them a week, and then maybe Io will be back, so we'll pound on them again about this cutting off lunches so they can build a stadium for like a.
the new circus tent.
It really sounds like something out of Despicable Me, or like
it looks like
or something.
It looks like the alien from Nope. Like that was the first thing I thought of.
It looks like a circus tent, which is very appropriate.
Yeah, Shayla.
But I mean, the whole concept of them doing, it's such a bad time to announce this. Like, such a bad time to announce this. We're like, we're not doing lunches anymore. Here's an apple, because we got to build a stadium with your lunch money.
The YouTuber HITC7s did an incredible, it's like an hour and a half YouTube documentary about Man U's struggles right now, and just how awful of a person Jim Radcliffe is. Like, it is that guy is horrific. He is scum of the earth. So shout out to Sevens. It's a quality video.
Oh, we'll bring clips of it and watch it with Io next week, probably. But thanks to all those joining us this week. We'll be back same time, same place next week. We'll see. I mean, I guess the only good thing is the gap can't be bigger for Arsenal. So there's that.
Timogen, score predictions for us.
Oh,
for
FA
Cup. I go with the Timuchin special, as I call them, 3-1 Liverpool.
I think we set the scoring record that Australia set against American Samoa. I think we go 33-0 against you guys. It's going to be incredible. Set your DVR.
What do you guys have, by the way? Let's ask the neutrals over here.
I'll go 2-1. Maybe Arsenal pulls it off. Or not Arsenal, Newcastle. Isaac, gets the 2 goals. Just to really keep going and showing up that, hey, this is the guy that everybody needs to sign. And, Newcastle already signed him, but if you want him, 250.
Man, I used to like you. Glenn, what do you have?
Yeah, 2-1 Newcastle as well. Isak on the score sheet. It's
That's
a
why I
shame.
wanted to end the show, because I didn't want to take it.
See, Spencer agrees. Spencer in the chat says 2-1. Doesn't say 2-1.
Like,
I assume to Newcastle. That's the Newcastle.
I have never had this many people pick Newcastle in a game. Like, I don't know what to do with my hands right now. This is crazy.
I think it's kind of like rooting for the underdog. I mean, let's face it. If Newcastle was playing anybody else, I would probably root for Newcastle, somebody to win a trophy. Like if it was Spurs, I would root against them because it's comical that they don't win anything, kind of a deal. But I feel like this is kind of like a different scenario. So if you guys are playing Chelsea or somebody, I would probably root for Newcastle too. Sadly, you guys are playing us. Hopefully, after today, it'll be interesting to see how today affects Liverpool. Not only like tiredness and stuff like that, but mentality-wise, do they come out and like Glenn was saying, this is like really the last probably meaningful game they will play this season at this point. Do they play it like it is the last meaningful game? So we shall see. It'll definitely be interesting, and hopefully Liverpool will win it. And we'll talk about that next Tuesday as well. But we'll see you guys same time, same place, 8 o'clock Central. Have a great week, everybody. Take care.